So we continue with our work cycle, and now that we have our character moving legs and doing the basic stride and animating her spine and her head, we'll moving on now to work on her arms, and with the intention of getting them aligned with the movement that we've been doing. So if you look at the reference here, um, you know, shoulders are opposite to the leg that is in front. So the arm that is in front is opposite arm to the leg that is in front. That makes it easier because the arms are going to just simply continue with that trend. And, and if we go and look at our reference material from our book, we discover here that again, opposite arm goes in front, and of course when it goes to the back, same thing. Arms goes all the way to the back. So we're gonna start animating those poses on those arms, at least for this basic initial walk cycle, and then we'll move on from there to work a bit more in detail. So um, I am going to animate again. The positions for the arms will be same based on the same keys. I'm not putting keyframes in other locations except for the same ones. This I'm gonna go keep it on 1, 13, and 25 to start. If I need to put more, I'll put again on 7 and 19 to add more to it. So let me try to get that going. So that means that my initial pose here, she's going to be I'm going to animate her shoulders. I'm not animating the clavicle, at least not yet. So I'm going to get her arm semi forward and down. So I'm going to go with the down pose first. I'm going to try to keep the numbers here. So I'm going to go rotate Z to maybe 60. And I'm going to say rotate in Y. In her case, I'm going to go to negative 130 to see what happens there. 130. So I get her arm doing the movement forward. It's very tight. Let me go bring her back, rotate Z a tiny bit. I'm just going to bring her to maybe 50, and then 100 and negative 130. Notice how I try to change the values on just one or two at a time, not all of them at once. Because if you pose it by doing your, moving to the controller here, all the rotation axes will be affected. And yes, Maya will do that, but that might generate a bit harder way for you to manipulate to control your pose. So I'm going to just go and keyframe that. And I know that at the end, in that same position at the end, she's going to have to be the same pose. So I'm going to just go to the next pose there, and same way I'm going to just keyframe that. And then I'm going to go back to the middle wave, which is the 13. I'm going to make the arm do the opposite. So I'm going to go on 13, and again I'm going to animate her. Let me change here to the side view a little bit better. And just erase those grease pencil. There we go. I'm going to go and animate the arm to the back again, rotating in Y first. So I'm going to try to do my rotation in Y to the back. You can see here. I'm just animating only the shoulder. I'm not animating elbows yet. So rotation in Y. So let's say negative 2.5. Right, hit enter there, and then my value in Z, that seems to be pretty decent, although it's the same angle. I'm gonna go maybe to 60. Just exaggerate it a little bit more. So I'm just gonna go keyframe that. So I have her now doing the motion on both. So if I play her back, It looks okay. I think on her position number 13, I could probably exaggerate a tiny bit more. I'm gonna rotate, and I'm saying it because her arm is going very far back, but I know that the elbow is going to bend forward a little bit. So I want to exaggerate that rotation. I go to negative 2.15, see what happens there, and I'm gonna keyframe that. So now I need to mimic those numbers on my other arm. So in this case, my other arm starts with the opposite. So that means that I need to get her to do the values that for the right arm would be the midpoint, which is frame 13. For the right arm would be 1 and 25. So let's try doing that. So let me try to define first the value for number 13, and I have negative 215 and 60. Those won't be exactly the middle numbers on the other one because negative 215 and 60. I need to write that down, otherwise I will forget. So negative 215 and 60. Okay, I just wrote it down here on my piece of paper. So I'm going to go now and put, and those again are rotations in Y and Z. Right, Y and Z. So I'm gonna put those here, and rotation in Y, if I go to 16, let me try rotation in Y, the one negative 215. She's rotating forward, 215. She's rotating forward, went to the other side. So I'm gonna go try to keep it positive 215. That's not it either. So neither of them match the number in negative or positive. And why is that? Because of course the calculation has to be different. So the calculation there has to go in a different manner. Let me just try to explain it. So just click on the wrong button here for a moment. Okay, so if you bring the arm back, I'm going to just temporarily bring the other arm back to the neutral pose. We're trying to mimic this position for the left arm. So, and this one is the one that has negative 215 and 60. I'm going to bring temporarily that to the neutral straight arm just to see the difference. So this one was negative 180, and this one was 0. So you see my number says negative 215 and 60. All right, this one is Y, this one is Z, right? So right now as it is, and this is the neutral rigging binding pose, is negative 180 and 0. So the difference is that from negative 180 to negative 215 is 35 degrees. And of course from 0 to 60 is 60. That means that this other arm, the change has to be 35 degrees, and in Z will maintain the 60 value. So just try to do that. Of course I changed the arm, but I'm not going to keyframe that, so that way my arm stays the way I had it. So that means that in frame 1, this arm has to be rotation in Y either negative 35, or which is the difference between 180 and 215, or positive 35. So I'm going to try typing here positive 35, and that seems to be a right rotation to the back because I want that arm to be that way. So I'm going to keyframe that, and then I'm going to change the Z to, if I say 60, it goes up, so it's not 60, it's negative 60. So it will be negative 60 down. That way I get the arm to do the position mirroring the other arm in frame 13. So now I'm going to move my, better keep that same frame in frame 25 because it's going to repeat. So it's going to be doing that. Okay, so I got my two extreme peak frames. Now I'm going to my frame 13, in which I need to mirror the other arm, which makes it a lot easier because now it's just taking the value from this one in frame 1 and putting it on the left arm in frame 13. So let me go to frame 1 and see those values. The value is 180 and 50. That means the difference, again, 130 and 50. So the difference from 180 to 130 is 50 degrees. That means that, I can write it down here, that means that this arm has to be 30 degrees and the value again for that one and the other one was 50 degrees. So on Z, so Y the difference is 30 and in Z the difference is 50, right? So let me do that. So I'm just going to put my frame here. So I know the Y value for it has to be rotation. I think it's going to have to negative 30 and Y. Let's try that. Negative 30. So the arm goes forward, and then Z would be negative 50. That goes a little bit higher there. So now she has both arms doing the back and forth movement. So that makes it a little bit easier. And now the elbows and the wrist will follow those same movements. So this is the part that is a bit calculating back and forth because both arms have a different angle of rotation. So in this case, I'm going to go and identify on my left arm. Let me erase those grease pencils that I got there. I'm gonna try getting the elbow to do what it needs to do. So I'm gonna say, all right, going back to my reference again. So when the arms go back, the elbow is slightly bent, and when it goes forward, it's slightly bent also to the opposite side. So I'm going to do the same thing, 3 keyframes, frame 1, frame 13, and frame 25. So let's start with frame 1. So I'm going to rotate only in Y. My grid is only allowing me to rotate in Y. That makes it a bit easier. So I'm going to get here to be negative 25 there. Keyframe that. That means that here in frame 25, same thing. And that means that in frame 13, I'm going to push my rotation in negative 25. I'm going to go a bit more. I'm going to exaggerate a tiny bit more there. So I'll say negative 60. I'm going to keyframe that. Notice how my arm is showing the gimbal lock. I'm not passing the gimbal lock yet, but if my X was to pass that other gray line there, the arm will freak out. So just being aware of that. So now she is doing elbow movement without being that good, or a bit at least that relaxed. So I'm gonna try writing down those values because I don't want to forget. So the elbow when it's in the back is negative 25. When it is in the front is negative 60. And I'm going to go do the same thing for the other arm. So here she would be negative 25, so we have 180 there, negative 180. I needed to do this. That means I'm negative 180 minus negative 25 would be negative 55, 155. Again, 180 minus 30 minus 25, that it's 155. So I'm going to keyframe that. And then in frame 1, the difference is 60. That means that from 180 minus 60 would be negative 120. So she goes a bit more there. And of course, in 2025, she will go the same number, negative 120. So a little bit of math there, but not terribly difficult. Just keeping in mind that arms are, not all the values on arms are the same. So, and I'm going to just increment and save my file here. And the last thing I'm going to do here in this section is I'm going to animate the hands so I can get those hands a bit more. And again, it'll be a bit more of a kind of like added detail to it. So you see that my hand, when it's forward, it's slightly bent down, and it's slightly bent back. So you decide how much you want it to be. You can have it up or down, or down to your character. I'm actually going to, because if I keep it like that, maybe that could work. Let me say, like I said, negative 30 there in frame 13. Right, so that means that the other one will be negative 30 in the first and last keyframe. Let me do that one right away. So I'm going to say negative 30, or in this case will be positive 30 in keyframe 1 and keyframe 25. Right, now I go and change this one, so when she goes back, she's going to be, I'm going to bring it up actually this way. So I'm going to give her 20 degrees in Z there. And again, I try to maintain just one or two axes, not all at the same time. So that means then frame 25, it will be 20 positive. Right, so she does that. So the value is 20 for the opposite value of the hand. That means that here she's going to have to be negative 20. So I kind of mirror the numbers there. So let me just look at her. She's starting to look okay. She feels a bit rigid, but for this part I think we're good so far. Let me erase my grease pencil there, and then increment and save my file, and then we'll continue the next video.